As you all know, the International Urban and Regional Cooperation, IURC for short, is an initiative funded by the European Union that is about cooperation between cities and regions to advance innovations in sustainable urban development. The North American network is now beginning the third phase of its programming with a brand new group of 18 cities, and we are excited to launch today the circular economy theme of work. My name is Jacinthe Séguin, and I am the lead expert who will be accompanying you on this circular economy journey for the next 2 years, and accompanied by my IURC North America colleagues. I'm joining you today from Ottawa, Canada, which is located on the traditional, unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin people, and I am grateful for their ongoing hospitality. The topic of our webinar is to explore the role of local governments in the circular economy. The potential of this concept to address many of today's environmental and social challenges has gained significant attention in recent years. Tremendous innovations are seen at the local level, generating positive impacts which are necessary contributions to larger social changes. The role of cities and regions has never been more important, and there's a lot to be inspired by. Today, we will hear from 3 leading organizations that are engaging local governments in this transformation towards a circular and sustainable economy. We hope that you will find motivations in the stories of how small and large cities are getting prepared, taking action, and working with stakeholders to tackle challenges. And then we're looking forward to hearing from you about your interests and how we can support your learning and collaborations through our initiative. Before we begin, I have a few housekeeping notes to share. First, we would like to know who you are and where you're connecting from, so please write your name, title, and city in the chat box. We will have a live question and answer session after all the presentations. I will remind you to write your questions for our panelists in the chat box, and we'll direct them to our speakers. We will try to get to as many as we can in the time that we have, but your questions can also be answered post-webinar, so don't be shy. Finally, this session will be recorded, and we will share the link and presentations with the whole network afterwards. You're welcome to share the link with and the presentation materials with your interested colleagues. I am now delighted to introduce Ana Walarte, the representative of the EU delegation to Canada, who will offer welcome on behalf of the European Union. Ana, over to you.
Thank you very much, Jacinthe, and welcome all the participants, the cities, and the speakers today. It's really a great pleasure for me to welcome you today to this webinar. As Jacinthe said, we are doing through this webinar a transition from the second phase of the International Urban Regional Cooperation to this new phase, in which we are going to continue supporting city-to-city cooperation, but also we are reinforcing our thematic networks. Circular economy, in fact, is a subject that we started in the previous phase, and has been very well. It has been very welcomed by the cities. We have realized how much we have to how much knowledge we have to share between the cities in the European Union, between the cities in North America. And that's why we have decided to continue. We have, for this third phase, we have some meetings with the cities that are participating in the pairings. And in fact, the topic of circular economy is still big for all the cities. There is a big role of cities to play in circular economy, and so we are very grateful to start this series and this cohort today. I'm very happy to have Jacinthe with us again. She has been working with the European Union in other projects and also on circular economy, plastics. She's very experienced within this policy at the government in Canada. So great, Jacinthe, to have you here today. And also the other speakers that are your contribution will be really precious for us. And I just wanted to remind you that IURC is a project that supports the city cooperation between the European Union and North American cities. Our aim is to work together on our global challenges. And I think, yeah, it's, we work at this project together with the cities, and we overview the work from Brussels with our colleagues of DG Regio, that is the policy Directorate General of the European Union in charge of regional policy and urban development, and also delegations of in Canada and Washington. So you will be seeing us around. I'm the program manager for this project, and I will stop here. We have prepared a short overview of the EU policies of circular economy, and my colleague Magdalena Ciesielska, that is here with us today. Thanks, Magda, for being here. She is going to give you a kind of a short overview of our policies. Magdalena is also working at the EU delegation in Canada. So Magdalena, over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna, and hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for giving me the pleasure, the opportunity to present briefly the EU policy framework on circular economy. I'm Deputy Head of Trade and Economic Section at the EU delegation, indeed, and I work with, here in Ottawa, I work with Anna. So it's very difficult to make a brief presentation because the framework is so wide and concerns so many issues and so many sectors, but I'll do my best. I just flag the main topics, the main issues covered by the policy. The main policy framework actually is called Circular Economy Action Plan. It was adopted in March 2020, so it's been now a few years that some of these initiatives have been developed. It's part of a broader EU strategy, this overarching big EU strategy for a climate neutral, resource efficient and competitive economy that is called European Green Deal. And I'm sorry, I think we have some drilling in the office, so that will have to be background noise, I suppose. The need, of course, for circular economy policy comes from this exhaustion, the exhaustion of the Earth resources between 1970 and 2017. The annual global extraction of materials tripled. There is, of course, all the other indicators are getting worse: annual waste generation, plastic pollution, and all of that. We all know that. So as the EU now aims to transition towards a greener economy, we also may have to make sure that this is an economy that is circular. So we reduce the pressure on natural resources, we produce less weight, and we make sure that the resources stay in the economy, that we recycle them. And as we know, this green transition that we are all aiming at will create new pressures on natural resources, renewable energy sources, e-vehicles, all that will require critical raw materials and new resources. So we have to make sure that we do not, while transitioning into a green economy, we do not create actually other problems. So the overall objectives for the EU strategy policy is to decouple economic growth from resource use, to transition towards a regenerative growth model, and to reduce our consumption footprint. What it means in concrete terms. So the strategy lists an impressive number of initiatives that have been developed and are still being developed in the EU. It creates a very comprehensive framework that focuses a lot on actually products, production methods on different sectors to make sure actually to make sustainable products, services, businesses models the norm in the EU and transform our consumption patterns so that there is no waste produced in the first place. That's a very ambitious objective. So as I said, it's a whole range of initiatives. They address, let's say, the entire cycle of production of different products. because there is a recognition that, of course, things start where the products are designed, whether the circularity, recyclability is embedded in their design. And then there are different measures on sustainable consumption, on prevention of waste, and recyclability. It's a combination, let's say, of legislative and non-legislative measures, support programs, different initiatives, but we have to also recognize it's a lot of new mandatory legislation that is being developed in the EU. The EU actually has quite large competences to adopt legislation to protect the environment. It's by definition considered an issue that goes beyond member states' national borders. So there is this competence, there is this power, and there's a lot of new legislation coming up. I will not explain all the different measures. There are many, and I'm also not an expert on all these different measures. I just wanted to flag the topics. There are some horizontal measures. So as I said, the design of a product is very important. So there is, for example, a proposal for regulation on eco-design for sustainable products. Another more horizontal issue is reduction of waste. So another a big area of different measures on a reduction of different types of waste. And then there is a whole list of measures targeting specific sectors. There are 7 main sectors that are targeted, and I'll go through them very quickly again. First one is electronics and ICT. 40% of electronic waste is currently recycled in the EU. So there is a whole range of measures. And maybe the most known, the most reported on in the press is the initiative of a single charger. By the end of 2024, all mobile phones, tablets, and cameras sold in the EU will have to be equipped with a USB-C charging port. So that was something that actually was quite widely reported on worldwide. Another big sector is batteries and vehicles. As we know, the green transition will require huge reliance on batteries. On e-vehicles and all of these new technologies. So also we have to make sure that these batteries have a recyclable content. And this actually legislation on batteries is the first one that went through all co-legislative process in the EU and is now fully endorsed. So there are rules on recycled content, on non-rechargeable batteries, very detailed technical rules. Packaging, another big topic, of course, with the overall objective to reduce the amount of packaging, to make it recyclable, to think about labels, how that will enable people to separate packaging and this kind of waste. Plastics, big topic. That was actually an area where we worked successfully with Canada on developing different initiatives. There is a dedicated strategy in the EU strategy for plastics in the circular economy. That addresses different issues, single plastics. We have a framework from 2019 on single-use plastics directive that is a promotion of biodegradable, compostable plastics, and of course address the problem of microplastics in the environment. Another big sector, textiles. Only less than 1% of all textiles worldwide are recycled into new textiles. Again, there is a separate dedicated strategy for sustainable and circular textiles. Construction and building, this is maybe a sector that is more relevant for your cooperation. The construction sector is responsible for over 25% of the EU total waste generation. And there is again another dedicated strategy for sustainable built environment, construction product regulation with different recycled content requirements. And the last sector is water, food, water and nutrients to reduce food waste and water waste. So this is, as you see, a very comprehensive framework concerning different products, but it's not only about these kind of mandatory rules for different products. There are also what we call area of initiatives to empower consumers to actually be able to choose wisely, to receive the relevant information. And here I will just mention a directive on environmental claims to oblige companies to substantiate their environmental claims and avoid greenwashing, and a whole new initiative on the right to repair, to be able to repair the products that we buy. What is the strategy underlines that it's not only new requirements and new obligations, it's also an opportunity for the economy. We hope it will be driver for change, but also job creation. And they are different assessment. The one listed in the paper is that 700,000 new jobs were created in the EU thanks to these new, let's say, opportunities and new sectors of waste management, recyclability, and all of that. And now I get to my last point. Of course, partnerships are very important for this strategy and this policy to develop. Cities are key to engage with. 70% of the population of the EU lives in the cities. So there are many actually dedicated initiatives in the EU to address and motivate cities to contribute to these overall objectives. I will just list them. There is European Urban Initiative, Intelligent Cities Challenge, Circular Cities and Regions Initiative, and finally Green City Accord, which is also very interesting initiative, a movement of European mayors committed to making cities cleaner and more circular, with a dedicated objective on circularity. And of course, our cooperation with other international partners is key for that policy to succeed, and also to, let's say, find like-minded partners and countries. And I would just refer, maybe that would be mentioned later, to the Global Alliance on Circular Economy that Canada is also part of. That is an important international initiative to promote these priorities and objectives. Thank you very much. And I unfortunately have to go to another meeting, but if there are any questions on any of these initiatives, please maybe write them and to the organizers in the chat, and I will be happy to reply later, or even if more details are needed, to refer to our European experts on any of the initiatives and reply to your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Magda and Anna, and thank you for this context. As you can see, there's a lot of activities and a lot of ambitions coming from the European Union, and we'll also happily provide links and information on the documents to our participants in the network. Let's turn right away to our first speaker, Oriana Romano. She is the unit head of the Water Governance, Blue and Circular Economy in the Urban Policies and Sustainable Development Division of the OECD Center for Entrepreneurship, SMEs, Regions and Cities. She's extremely well placed to be speaking to us on this topic, as she initiated the OECD program on the circular economy in cities and regions, and heads the OECD Water Governance Program. We're very happy that she could be with us today from Paris. Oriana, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jacinthe. Thanks to IURC for this invite. It's really a pleasure to be here and provide an overview of our work and result of the analysis that we carried out in the last 6 years. So I'm sharing a PowerPoint just for your convenience, so that you can see numbers and facts on the screen. Please just let me know if you see the PowerPoint correctly, and I can go ahead.
Everything is good.
Perfect. So let me just start by highlighting and perhaps substantiating the messages that had been previously shared about why the circular economy is important in cities and regions. So let's say at subnational level. Well, the global population will reach over 9 billion people by 2050. Statistics say that over 70% of people will be living in cities, and this means that there will be an increased use of resources, an increased production of waste and generation of waste, an increased demand for construction, for water, for energy. So if we are already in a situation where in the last 30 years resources use and extraction have been tripled, going ahead, the situation doesn't seem to improve, especially because of a series of drivers, including demographic growth, that will push for an increasing demand of a number of material, whether it is biomass related, metallic or non-metallic ones. Cities are also the places where we can see, and especially in big cities, a number of income inequalities. The 10% of richest earn nearly 10 times more than the 10% poorest. And also cities are vulnerable to climate change impact and at the same time contribute to climate risks. 60% population, for example, face water-related issues by 2050. There is a strong increase in terms of pollution, soil degradation, desertifications, flood, sea level rise. So a number of impacts that are due to climate change that will not only reduce the quantity of resources available, but that also will have an impact on the quality of these resources, increasing also competition across places. At the same time, cities and regions are also a response to many of the environmental challenges. In fact, they are responsible for 64% of climate and environmental related investment. And this may include energy, transport, water, and telecoms. Now, the circular economy in cities has been, let's say, quite analyzed in the last few years, especially, well, I can talk about our program in particular. We divided the program on the circular economy in cities and regions. So for those who don't know the program, in 3 big blocks, because we believe that one important dimension is to learn about circular economy, and the OECD in particular provides supports to national, regional, and local governments, because in the circular economy transition requires place-based policies. Although there are a number of common challenges and common solutions across cities and regions all around the world, and especially in the OECD area, as such, policies are very much related to the territories, are very much related to the type of economies, to the type of existing infrastructure and future ones, but also to the stakeholders that are active in a certain area. So we have been working with the net, Spain, Sweden, UK, Canada, Italy, Israel, and many other countries, really to provide evidence on this place-based approach and support governments with their policy reforms and policy transition. Another important block is about sharing. We believe that this type of initiative, as well IURC, are fundamental to exchange experiences, to learn from success, but also from failures. And we have activated since 2019 the roundtable on the circular economy in cities and regions. Actually, if you are in Brussels during the World Circular Economy Forum, you are very welcome to join the 6th roundtable on the circular economy in cities and regions that would take place during the days of the World Circular Forum on the 18th of April. And another important dimension is about measuring. Many governments as well as other actors from the private and public sectors need to know where do they stand in terms of progress towards the circular economy. And this is such a difficult task because the circular economy is not just a simple concept, it's an umbrella concept. There are many sectors, many actors, many policies involved, and so many indicators. In fact, we have collected in an inventory on a measuring framework more than 500 indicators related to the circular economy in different aspects, whether they are related to environment, social aspect, economic aspect, and so on, as well as different sectors. And at the end, we came up with a scoreboard for government to have an understanding on the state of the art and the level of implementation of the enabling conditions for the circular economy to happen. So the governance conditions that I will mention and clarify in the remaining minutes I have available for this presentation. Just very briefly, when we asked cities what is a circular economy for you, you can see here that the priorities and also the understanding of the circular economy and what the circular economy aims for as a means to an end. So it's not an end per se, it's really across the cities. This is the example on the slide. You see the example of 4 cities that we have interviewed, just to provide you an idea. And for example, for some, climate change is the main aim of the circular economy. For others, it's very much related to business models. For others, is related to raw material or zero waste. So within a circular economy, there are a variety of concepts and aims to take into account. But if we summarize, let's say, what the circular cities and regions should aim for, would be at least to look at 3 dimensions in particular. The first one is services. Cities should ensure that services from water to waste to energy are provided while preventing and reducing waste generation, making an efficient use of natural resources as primary material, optimizing their reuse, and allowing synergies across sectors. This is important because cities normally have competencies over those sectors, and they can really have a key role in using material and resources in an efficient way, and also preventing waste rather than just optimizing waste management in its final stages, so through recycling, which is indeed a second best solution within a circular economy approach. Cities also can plan economic activities and execute in a way that allow to close slow and narrow loops across the value chain. Typically, this type of value chains are related to food, construction, or even textile. And infrastructure should be designed and built to avoid linear lock-in, which uses resources in an efficient way, using resources in an efficient way, so avoiding linear lock-in. And this means, for example, creating urban and industrial symbiosis for the exchange of resources, because an output for a certain infrastructure, a certain activity can be an input for another activity or another infrastructure. So obviously, there is a potential for the circular economy to support a number of objectives, whether they are related to job creation, to economy, or to the environment. For example, applying the circular economy to the construction chain in the city of Amsterdam in the Netherlands would decrease greenhouse gases emission by 500,000 tons of CO2 per year. These are projections towards 2050. In London, benefits from circular approaches applied to certain sectors like built environment, food, textile and also plastic are estimated at 7 billion GDP every year by 2036. And in France, there is an estimation that circular economy can create 50,000 jobs linked to the different phases, whether it is about prevention of waste, reuse, or regenerative economy. What we have done within the circular economy program is then to say, if there is a reason to move from a linear to a circular economy, and we saw that there are several reasons actually, and if there is a potential which is not only related to the environment but also to the economy and to society, especially in terms of job creation. So what is the situation right now, and what are the enabling conditions for this transition? So we interviewed and surveyed 50 cities and regions from Europe, America, Oceania, and Asia. We merged this result with 7 case studies from Europe in particular, and we conducted 300 plus interviews with stakeholders to have an understanding of what is the state of the art. And in terms of a result, you can find that climate change is really the most important and relevant drivers for cities and regions to move towards the transition, but also global agenda plays a role. The previous colleague mentioned the Circular Economy Action Plan. This is an important push for European cities, but there is also the Agenda for Sustainable Development 2030, so the SDGs, in particular the SDG 12 and the Paris Agreement. Cities are also looking for new ways to save resources, to make sure that trade at local level is not disrupted by international and important events, so in relation to economic change, but also the circular economy sees as a means for job creation. The point is that most of the cities and regions that we have interviewed are still very much at the beginning of this transition. So 57% of the cities are newcomers. In 37% of them, there are already circular economy initiatives in place, whether in the form of roadmap, long-term visions, strategies, or initiatives that are very punctual and specific in relation to sectors like construction and built environment. And most of them, 84%, use pilot and experimentation, meaning that, yes, it is important to start up, so making sure that innovation and pilots and experimentation can bring results that can be used to perhaps adapt the regulation or sharing financial risks among the private and private sector. But then after a certain time of experimentation, this type of pilots, they need to be scaled up to reach the expected outcomes on environment, economy, and society. What we have seen also is that, as you can see from the graph, a lack of technical solution is really the least of the problem for cities and regions. Cities and regions know how to prevent waste, to treat waste, to reduce the use of resources, exchange resources, optimize the use of resources and material, shift from plastic to biodegradable material for a number of activities and uses. The problem is the governance. So financial resources, regulatory frameworks, financial risks. So the enabling condition that would allow the circular economy transition. So what we have done is to create a checklist for cities and regions to work on when they look forward to this transition. And we believe that they can be at the same time promoters, facilitators, and enablers of the transition itself. So they can be promoters, so for example, by setting up a strategic vision that would be shared in a transparent way and that would increase the awareness among a series of actors, because the circular economy is a shared responsibility. So it's not just a top-down type of approach. Cities can facilitate contacts, exchanges, and dialogue across a number of stakeholders, but also policies. So what we believe is very much the system approach across actors and sectors that would also allocate financial resources in the most efficient way and at the most appropriate scale. And then at the same time, cities can enable this transition through regulation, financing, capacity building, which is something that is very much needed also internally within municipal administration. Promote innovation. So, for example, even public procurement can be innovative and can make sure that not only big company but also small and medium enterprises can participate to tenders, and also data and assessment, making sure that progress and impact are evaluated over the years. When it comes to the reports and the case studies that we have carried out, there had been always a follow-up in terms of specific and concrete activities after the work that we have done. For example, we informed the circular economy route in Glasgow, the whole of a government circular economy strategy in Ireland, in Valladolid. We very much supported the need of metabolism and material flow, but also collaboration agreement with universities and business. And so, for example, the recommendation that we made were approved by the council. This is just to say that it is important to study and analyze the situation, but really the practice and the implementation is what is still missing, and obviously is the most difficult part. But little by little, we hope that we can also contribute to this implementation process. Let me just conclude by informing you that the OECD is strongly collaborating with the CCRI, the Circular Cities and Regions Initiative of the European Commission. We will provide support to 10 case studies, and again, this will be also part of the discussion during the 6th roundtable on the circular economy in cities and regions that will take place in Brussels in April. Should you wish to be involved in these activities, we will work towards a flagship report of cities and regions in Europe. Please feel free to contact me, and this is an example of the scoreboard that is very much related to the checklist that we have, that I have just presented, really to analyze the impact and the progress towards the circular economy, especially in terms of governance. And I thank you very much for your attention. You can see here my contact, so I look forward to hearing your questions or to follow up by email. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Oriana. Some incredible information, very valuable already for our network. Our next panelist is coming to us from Vancouver, Canada. Welcome, Joanne. Joanne Gauci is the Senior Policy Advisor at the National Zero Waste Council and Metro Vancouver, where she advances large-scale collaborations and system change to accelerate the transition to a circular economy. She plays leadership roles in the implementation of the Love Food, Hate Waste Canada and the Circular Cities and Regions Initiative. Joanne, welcome, and the floor is yours.
That's great. Thank you, Jacinth. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today. I'm joined by my colleague, Corey at FCM, and we'll both be here to answer any questions and really to share with you our experience with the Circular Cities and Regions Initiative. So for those of you that might be less familiar with it, it really represents a unique national collaboration, bringing together the skills and expertise of 4 different organizations, the National Zero Waste Council, FCM, Receipt Quebec, as well as the Recycling Council of Alberta. And the goal of the CCRI is really to build circular economy knowledge and capacity in the Canadian local government sector. So just to build, I think, on some of the themes that have already been raised, but just why do we need to have a circular cities approach? Many local governments are advancing new plans and actions, and there's really good reasons for that. I would suggest that in a really rapidly changing world, the circular economy is an important solutions framework that can help local governments stay equipped and stay out in front of that change. It helps to break down silos between different organizations and different departments, and it can really nurture an innovation mindset across the organization as a whole. More specifically, as we've already heard, it can help to deepen and accelerate progress on climate change. It supports ambitious goals related to waste prevention and economic development, and can have a number of different co-benefits related to biodiversity, as well as social inequities. We also know that our cities and regions are really the hubs of our activities and our ideas. They're where people come together, and they're also where we consume the majority of our resources. And so while there's a really important role for businesses to play, particularly in sector-specific transitions, we also know that there's an equally important role that local governments play in terms of enabling the circular economy from the ground up. In Canada, we often have vast distances between our urban centers, and there's a real uniqueness to our communities province by province. And so this really emphasizes, I think, two things. One, that potential for local governments to really have a key role in the circular economy transition, and also the need to think about these new approaches and these new solutions that can be applied in cities and regions of different sizes. So yes, in our big, large urban centers, but also in our smaller towns and our communities in rural and remote areas. So in that context, the Circular Cities and Regions Initiative really aims to help local governments in Canada lead the way on the transition, and we try to do that in three key ways. To inspire local government practitioners through our national webinar series, to connect peers to each other through our peer-to-peer network, and to support those local governments in taking the next steps on their action planning process. We've been really fortunate to have a number of different advisors that have supported the program. We work really closely with EMF and Circle Economy, and have really tried to nurture that peer-to-peer collaboration. So just to give you a sense, we launched the program in 2021, and in that time, 25 cities and regions have been participating, 15 in our first cohort, and another 10 in our second cohort. This will give you a sense of those communities. It's a really diverse group of cities and regions. Some of them I think are on this call today. They were all at different levels of readiness when they came into the program. They have different and unique characteristics from a socio-economic standpoint. And I think importantly, what you'll see here is we have both French and English communities participating. And that's really been helpful in terms of nurturing that cross-Canada conversation. So when the communities were actively participating in our program, they were meeting about every 6 to 8 weeks to share common challenges and opportunities. And they each had individual workshops that happened and took place to support their own action planning. It was a huge level of effort and commitment for those local governments that were involved. And you can see that reflected in this slide here. In terms of the action planning process that they did with us, this is a very simplified way to look at it, but I think it's helpful. I would encourage you to look at some of those robust frameworks that have been developed by OECD, Circle Economy, EMF, and to find something that helps you think about this as well. But certainly what they did with us was a very rapid style workshop process, bringing together different staff from different departments to really think about where their strategic opportunities were. But this process could be applied at different scales. So this could certainly be applied to full scale road mapping exercises, as well as initiating small projects. Some of the lessons learned that we've really honed in on in the 2 years that we've been running this is there really is no one size fits all approach approach to doing this work, a very first and important first step is to really take stock and to think about what your unique entry point is for the circular economy. Some local governments go right to doing standalone circular economy plans. Others look to embed circularity across the organization in your existing corporate plans and policies. That might be particularly useful if you have a strategic plan or policy up for renewal. Others may have specific projects that are coming forward that could be lighthouse projects for circularity moving forward. So really thinking about building that internal team of champions and really going where the energy is. In terms of where our communities are now, this will give you sort of a snapshot of the different areas where they're making inroads and where they're focusing their efforts. Since participating in the program, many local governments are now doing more detailed baseline assessments, circularity gap reports, circular economy strategies, those documents which have the backing of their respective councils and act as guiding frameworks for moving actions forward. District of Squamish, City of Richmond, and Montreal are all examples you could look to, and there's many more in the Canadian context. Many are looking at the role that they can play in supporting circular business. So that could be looking at interventions in those key sectors. We've heard them mentioned before: built environment, food loss and waste, engaging in some of the broader national work related to these sectors, setting up funds or pilots that support the development of new and innovative business models and solutions, and looking at their internal procurement and corporate operations. The other area where I would suggest there's lots of activity is really around that building internal capacity and mobilization, helping to build the case for circularity and pursuing those collaborations that'll be really important. And I think we heard this a little bit in Oriana's slide when she talked about governance. Bringing circular economy concepts and practices into implementation with funding and political support really takes a concerted effort from city staff champions across the board. So again, I think this gives you a high-level snapshot of where some of the activity is happening. I think it is indicative of broader momentum that is happening across the country in Canada. Certainly, Toronto has been leading the way for quite some time. There's circular food systems work that is being developed on the ground in cities and communities across the country, and much more. So it's an exciting time as local governments start to move from ideas to action, and that'll give you a little bit of a sense as to where we're also moving as well. So for the next year, the CCRI is really going to be focusing on trying to understand what tools and approaches and supports are helpful to those local governments in our cohorts, but also perhaps more broadly as they start to think about circular economy implementation. So we'll be hosting foundational sessions where we're really talking, broadly about how to set strategy, but also talking about the how as well as the what. So how do you build that support internally? How do you get senior level buy-in and nurture those collaborations? We will be hosting workshops to help do solutions mapping in 2 of those high impact areas. So again, this might be another crossover point as you go forward in your work as well, but really looking at circular food systems and circular built environment. And we're quite excited to be offering coaching for the first time. So that's really for communities to understand their best next step, whether that's small or large, by connecting them directly with circular economy experts. So I'll just leave you with this. I think, what we've certainly heard is the value of peer-to-peer connections is really important as you start down this journey of doing circular economy work. This was, I think, by far one of the biggest learnings for us, is just being able to talk to others that are in a similar position to you to discuss common opportunities and challenges. Really building that internal capacity and mobilizing stakeholders takes time. And so those peer-to-peer exchanges can really help you to navigate that. And I'll leave it at that, Jacinth, except to maybe just flag for folks when they are looking for resources, there's a webinar series and some additional knowledge products they can look to as well. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Joanne, for sharing your experience. You can see how valuable this will be for the network as well, and so glad to see the advances in Canada. So let me introduce our third and final panelist, Françoise Bonnet. She is the Secretary General of ACR Plus, which is an international association of cities and regions for sustainable resource management. She brings a wealth of experience in material resource governance.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. And I'm sorry, I thought I was disconnected there for a while.
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
she is also representing today the European Circular Economy Stakeholder Platform, which her organization actively participates in. Welcome, Françoise, and over to you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for inviting me to this webinar. And good morning to you. It's the end of the day for me here in Brussels. I will try to be short because I think that some of the things I wanted to present you has already been exposed, and maybe like that we will have some Q&A session. So I will give you a little bit insight of, yes, our story. What is this multi-stakeholder platform, European multi-stakeholder platform on circular economy, and navigating a little bit also on the different networks existing in Europe. Next, please. So maybe what is interesting to know next is a little bit about our story. So we have been existing since now 30 years. And the network was created in '94 because at that time at the EU level, they adopted a directive on packaging and packaging waste. And for municipalities, it meant that they had to organize selective collection of waste to collect in a certain way paper, plastic, and other waste. And it was an important challenge for all municipalities. And it started from there because some municipalities also considered that it was maybe easier also to have less waste to collect instead of putting in place a lot of selective collection stream. So for us, really our mantra is always trying to reduce the quantity of waste. And so we consider that we were circular even before the first circular action plan at EU level, because we really pushed a lot for that. Another very important point, when we were created, we decided, even if we defend local decentralized authorities' point of view and interest, so municipalities and regions, because it depends really on how your administrative organization is made in your country. And you know that in the EU, we have 27 countries with quite different way of administrating this kind of competencies. Most of the time, waste management is at municipal level, but when you look at more economic affairs, it's more at regional level that you develop it. So it's really important to connect competencies between cities, region, and of course also the national and supranational competencies. So that's why we have in our network cities and regions defending so the decentralized authorities' interest. But since the beginning, we have also other members like NGOs, like academics and private sector, because we are convinced that when you speak about developing circular solution, you need to put together different actors of the value chain. So it means also private sector, so recyclers or the producers, and also the civil society and the science academics. Next, please. And so our vision is really to try to have this, there is no conflict between economic and ecological system. So for our objective for 2030 now is really to advocate, to show off that circular economy is an instrument to fight against climate change. Because in '92 with Rio, a lot of public money was put within the energy sector, and with this, let's say, narrow vision that not other policy were connected correctly with other policies. And we have, it was mentioned that we have limited resources in our planet. So, okay, we can produce renewable energy, but we have to be careful also with the resource that we have in the planet. So, for example, we can discuss about the trend now to have electrical vehicles with this lithium battery, but it is maybe for further discussion. But this is really important for us to connect the different policy and to have a very comprehensive approach on a territory. What is really needed also, in our opinion, is to have a just transition, and with this overarching principle called sufficiency, or in French, sobriété. We are convinced that we need to implement more and more this concept everywhere. Otherwise, we won't reach our objectives. And of course, we also advocate for an important role of the decentralized authorities, so municipalities and regions, towards this circular transition. I think that it was already well mentioned that we live in cities, most of us, and so they are a very, very important player. Next, please. And so for us, it was mentioned, I think, enabler, facilitator, promoter. Yeah, for us, we always say we are bridging actors, and we can play on the demand side and on the supply side. And when we consider the demand side, it was mentioned before, but I think it's really an important instrument, public procurement. In the EU, nearly 20% of the general GDP is made of public procurement. So we can innovate by putting the right technical criteria. We can be an example through public procurement. So for us, it's really, really important. Of course, we have also other instruments in our hands, and you can see around the different, the circle that we have, of course, the planning, we have, of course, the infrastructure, we have also local taxes that we can put in place. We can also promote circular economy through subsidies to SMEs or other enterprises, and to put in place also certain system like pay-as-you-throw systems in order to promote the reduction of waste quantities on our territories. And of course, we can really be a strong driver by exemplarity through our policy at local level. Next, please. So, of course, it was also mentioned, we have a kind of recognition and legitimacy, because most of the time, they are elected, so they are recognized as representing the population, the citizens, and we are also close to citizens who are also consumer. So it's really important to advocate and to campaign on the fact that they consume on a daily base, and so they can change their behavior thanks to campaign and also economic instruments and legal instruments that we can put in place in our territories. Next, please. So we try to give concrete tools to our members, and we always try to have pilot with them, most of the time financed by EU funding programs, trying really to put in place concrete solution. We also advocate to defend their interests at EU and international level. And what we do also a lot is really benchmarking practices and performances. So for municipalities and regions, they have indicators. They can see where they are. Maybe they are a beginner, but they can see their improvement year after year by benchmarking their performances and their practices. And so we have a kind of observatories of performances at regional and local level. Because most of the time at the EU level, you have to report towards the Commission, so the government of the EU, but it's always a national reporting, and it does not reflect all the time the differences between part of your country. You can have wonderful performances in the north and maybe in the south or in the west really bad performances. So you need to have a tailored solution within your country. So it's really important for us to report also at more local level. Next, please. So yes, we have different activities in order to help our members to connect the dot of circularities. Next, please. And I will go very quickly. We have some success stories, and especially we push for more EPR in the different sectors, so extended producer responsibility. And I know that in Canada, in the North America, you also use this instrument in order to get financed when you collect and treat waste, and even more because it's also a push to better eco-design our products. Next, please. So now I will give you a little bit of insight about the European Circular Economy Stakeholder Platform. It has been existing since several years now. Next, please. And it's a network of network, more or less. So it was an initiative led by the European Commission and the European Economic and Social Committee. And they have selected 24 members of coordination office. So we are one of them, and we led the group of regions and cities, but we have other groups. It's everything on a voluntary basis. So you promote some activities during the year, and you try to invite as much as possible different actors to your activities. And we have a yearly important conference. This year, it will be during this international forum, World Forum on Circular Economy. I think it was mentioned by my colleague of the OECD. So we will have also this conference together with this World Forum. And we have also a newsletter where the 24 members can promote activities or peers activities in order to connect the different dots. Next, please. So you have there the 24 organization, and you see that CITRA is one of them, and CITRA is the organizer of this World Circular Economy Forum. So we tried really to synergize the different initiatives in order to be the most efficient as possible. Next, please. So now I would like also to give a little insight about the CCRI, please. Next. So also at EU level, you have the Circular Cities and Regions initiatives. I think it was already mentioned by OECD. And it's led by the DG within the Commission dealing with research and innovation. And they try really to have a team of experts in circular economy, giving more tailored solution to a certain number of cities. So you see that we have 10 pilots and 20 fellows, cities, regions, and territorial cluster in different areas. And they try to have a common methodology and self-assessment tool, trying to really have a kind of standard of practices, principle, and methods. And ACR Plus is part of this CSO. So this is this support office for cities and regions. Next, please. So here it's a little bit where we can place the different network, and all of them are complementary, you know. Every network has its role, but in some way we need really to connect each of them together in order to have added value at each step. So it's kind of summary of all the relevant network or initiative and where they can intervene. And you see that the CCRI is a let's say, a more practical approach. So really with a tailored solution with those 10 cities and followers. And you have also the involvement of the European Investment Bank that can give a loan, lend money to specific initiatives. Next, please. So yes, I just wanted to tell you that we are an international network. So we are really open to also have not only European cities, but also other. For example, we work a lot for the time being with all the Mediterranean regions, not only the European one, but also the southern one, because we share the same sea where we find a lot of pollution. And so we think that it's important to have connection and cooperation between South and North. And it's the same with the North America territory and Europe, because we sometimes use the same products. And we also have some plastics problem in terms of microplastics in the oceans, etc., etc., and more in general, to have maybe the good recipes that we can share together. So I'm happy to welcome other cities and regions in our network and to work together to have a greener society and world. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very, very much, Françoise. And also thank you to all our panelists. I'm conscious of the time right now. I hope that, well, I think this is a topic that we could all speak to for longer periods of time. And this webinar was intended to be a primer. So really the beginning of the conversation and certainly not the end. And I hope that our participants are convinced now that cities are really involved in the circular economy. There is support. There are a lot of networks that are there to support and to connect with your work and to collaborate with. And knowing that we had set aside some time for Q&As, but we've also run out of time, what I will do is I will take some questions, and we'll also take your questions and do a post-webinar answer process. So we'll field them back to our panelists and try to answer your inquiries as well. Also, some of our network participants were not able to connect today, so we'll be able to engage them in that conversation as well. In closing, I would ask Aurélie from IURC to put on the screen as well the link to a survey. And this survey is intended to get your feedback not only on the webinar, but also to get to know you better and what your thoughts on the circular economy are, what your interests and how you would like to learn and where you are on this journey, so that we can plan with you our program for the next 2 years. And we will also use this as a vehicle to share back the webinar link and also other materials from this webinar and the presentations. So giving you a little bit of time to scan this QR code if you are doing it live with us right now. And then if not, we'll be circulating the link later on. Again, I would like to take this time to offer my thanks on behalf of IURC North America to all our panelists. It was great to have with you with us today, and then we will be in touch for sure as our journey just begins. Thank you very much, everyone.